Guys, I want to thank the sponsors of the podcast. I want to thank GoHunt.com, my friend Cody Nelson, the glassing guru, the optics authority. He's the optics manager at GoHunt.com. If you have any interest in buying optics or have any glassing questions, whether it be tripods, spotting scopes, rifle scopes, range finders, anything to do with glassing, give Cody a call, 702-847-8747. That's extension 2, or you can email him at optics@gohunt.com. You can also send him a text or call him on his cell phone at 602-399-3699. Guys, right now at GoHunt.com Insider, you can take advantage of the free trial. Go to GoHunt.com/JScott. You're going to be able to take advantage of a free trial of the Insider. GoHunt is always adding more value for their Insider members. They've now added real 3D maps as a part of Insider for no additional cost. What an incredible value. Very soon they're going to have their mobile app up as well. Go to GoHunt.com/JScott and sign up for a free trial. If you're already an Insider member, it's automatically part of your Insider membership. And you can just go to the Maps tab up at the top once you sign in as an Insider. I also want to thank Kuyu Ultralight Hunting. That's the gear that I wear on all of my hunts. To find out more, you can go to kuiu.com, kuyu.com. They're a direct-to-consumer company. They sell everything off of the kuyu.com website. I also do a lot of question and answer on my Instagram where I'm answering questions about guys wanting to know about gear about Kuyu, so tune into my Instagram. I want to thank Kuyu for their sponsorship. I also want to thank phonescope.com. Use the JScott20 promo code. You're going to get a 10% discount on all orders. Again, thanks to all the sponsors of my podcast. Guys, welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. Today I've got Lance Kronberger of Freelance Outdoor Adventures out of Alaska. Lance, how are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Doing great, but you said it was about 10 degrees at your house and you were mad at me because it's about 70 at mine right now.
Yeah, you guys, you superstars living down there where it's warm. Yeah, it's still dark and it's cold, and I gotta go plow snow when we get done talking on this podcast.
Oh man, Lance, what are your? It's been, and we've got another application season coming up here with Alaska. I think the deadline's December 15th, and so we've got about 10 days now before the applications are due in Alaska. Lots to talk about with COVID and all your different hunts, and I want to kind of dive in before we really get to the application portion of, the Alaska season coming up here, and just talk to you about last year, late February, March, all of a sudden, and I'm assuming that's, right before some of your bear hunting and what have you later in the spring. Then COVID-19 hits, and all of a sudden, you start hearing about shutdowns and quarantines. From a business perspective, how was 2020 as far as dealing with that, and kind of start back at the beginning when it all first started happening and kind of work through how you had to handle it?
It was one of those things that we just, every day you woke up going, I mean, what's going to happen? And so, it was a rough spring for everybody. It's been a rough year for everybody. And it was just, it super changed how we thought about stuff. But, we woke up and, April 1st, the governor comes out and shuts down spring bear season for guided hunts for 2 months, April and May. So we lost our Kodiak season. We lost our Peninsula brown bear season. And all of a sudden I got 20 hunters I got to cancel and figure out what we're going to do. And I don't even know. So luckily guys were great. The hunters were great. I just, that's part of, having a bunch of them were repeat guys. I just said, we're going to figure it out. I just got to see what is going to be available. So, fast forward, every day was, like trying to figure out. The state ended up on our peninsula brown bear season at Cinder River. They postponed it a year because we're on an every other year in the spring. So instead of hunting in 2020 spring, we're going to hunt in 2021 spring, and then we're going to hunt again in 2022 spring. So that was a good fix. We found out, the board of game ended up deciding on that sometime in July. So we were able to do that. The Kodiak thing is a little more complicated. And so when it was all said and done, we ended up losing our whole spring season. So those 4 Kodiak brown bear tags that I had, they were gone and never coming back. So that's a big hit. We can't make them up. It's not like they have a quota that is over a 5-year period. It's a every year quota, and so they were gone. And so we just pushed all those hunters back in Kodiak. We pushed all those guys back a year. And then, on the peninsula stuff, it kind of changed what was happening because we do spring grizzly bears. And so I just had to do a lot of shuffling, had to move guys around. We ended up, so the governor allowed our hunting season for bears for non-residents to open back up June 1st. Well, our grizzly bear stuff is open from the 1st through the 15th. That's the end of the season. And so I was in contact with the state, representatives and things, and trying to make sure I was following all the rules. But we ended up doing, 14 days of hunting for grizzly bear, and it was super logistically challenging. We have an Alaska airline who services 140 communities that went bankrupt 2 weeks into COVID. So how we get around the state to a lot of our places, that was no longer available. But I ended up getting all my guides and clients to go to Seattle overnight, and then they had the early flight to Anchorage. Got to Anchorage. Everybody was in Anchorage by 2 p.m. At 2 p.m., at 3 p.m., the charter flights headed to Unalakleet. We were in Unalakleet by 5, and to follow all the restrictions and everything, I had everybody in the field that before midnight. The last flight was touching down at 11:40. We had everybody in the field, so nobody overnighted. Everybody was quarantining in the field. We ended up having a great spring bear season. The hunters were great. Getting out of the field became challenging because we had to go to Nome to fly guys out. Some guys had to stay extra days in the field just because of the way the flights worked. But everybody was great. We got through it, and that was kind of our trial run. Here's what we're going to have to do to be able to operate. Now we got the summer to figure out what's going to happen in the fall.
That's a lot to take in. What I heard from that was you lost 4 of your Kodiak bear hunts that are just gone from so that, for people listening, that was obviously you're an outfitter, you that's what you do for a living. You lost a portion of your income with, those are big, high dollar type hunts. And how, as an outfitter, as a professional, do you just take it and move on and take the loss, and there's nothing you can do about it? Or how challenging was that? And for other people in the industry and in the business that had to absorb losses like that, I have to believe that it was a big hit on a lot of the outfitters up there.
Yeah, it was hard on everybody. I feel super sorry for these Canadian guys because they don't even have any options with the border being shut. And I don't know. Everybody's operation's different. Some guys, they're pilots, and some guys have horses, and some guys, I have guides, and I'm a guide, and that was, lots of guys have employees, but that was kind of my main focus is my crew of guides. I got lots of young guides, and I got lots of guys with young families that, this isn't their fault. And, I hoped that Nikki and I had been you know, smart enough that, we weren't running it on shoestrings, to where when stuff like this happened, we could take care of those that had been there for us. And so trying to keep the guides busy, that was one of my main focuses. When you start chartering aircraft to places, and you start, having to do lots of things like that, certain hunts aren't very profitable, but you're able to pay your employees. And that was kind of where we were at, making sure that was going to be able to happen, that they were going to be taken care of, because this is going to pass. And I still need those guys to, go to battle, making sure that hunters are successful. So that was my main focus. But, lots of guys, I don't know how everybody did their business. Basically, we decided, if you had a contract with us, if you were contracted with us and you had given us money for your hunt, and we had to move your hunt. So on the Kodiak guys, I mean, they had given me money. We moved them back a year. Everybody got moved back a year. Everybody got accordioned. I'm not going to take a guy who's been waiting for 4 years and then kick him to the back of the line. Everybody got accordioned back. And whatever that contract was for, I honored their contract. Now, I don't know what other guys did, and it doesn't really matter. That's just what I did. Now, I will say, if you didn't have a contract with me and I had given you a price verbally or on email and we don't have a contract, that price probably is not still valid, because
Sure.
this whole thing has changed. The more remote you get, the more expensive things are getting, because things got even weirder come fall time for us operating.
I hear you talk about one of the local airlines that flies to 140 different communities goes bankrupt. One of the biggest challenges from being with you in Alaska on my hunt, although my portion was super simple, logistics, like you said, is a super challenging part of outfitting in Alaska. What has that airline going bankrupt done? And I would assume it's cost anybody that's traveling, it's going to cost them more money because there's less competition. Maybe there's not even another carrier. Tell us about that.
Well, there hasn't been another carrier. There's people that are kind of piecemealing it together, because the communities still have to be serviced with medical stuff and things like that. But basically, we had a once a day flight going into Unacleat. Now there was and that would take 30 passengers. Now they ended up being in the fall, 3 days a week. It'd take 8 passengers, and you had to make that airline reservation way in advance. So when a guy got done, if he wanted to, like, hey, I'm done, when can I get out? It might be a week before he could get a ticket out. So those are the type of things that became. So we had to charter flights. We had to do things like that. The expensive travel. And now I do think things are going to get better. The airline that went bankrupt was sold on the auction. They say they're going to go back to trying to get things back the way they were. But, guys always, when I get to spend some time with the guys on the hill, because, just like you guys aren't coming on these type of hunts that don't have some sense of business. They sit there and they start asking, hey man, how's this work? And why are things so expensive? And they start, hearing the logistical challenges. And like this year, I wasn't, this was the price of the hunt and this is what it is and stuff like that. When it cost me, where it would normally cost me $500 to get a guide out to the village, now it's costing me $1,500 a guide, and I'm guide heavy and I got packers. That kind of stuff adds up. But that's just the price of doing business. I can't pass that on. You got to make sure, I don't want to talk about other people, but I just told myself I got to make sure I got enough built in that I can handle that, because in Alaska, when you have problems, the only way you fix it is throw money at it. And you better be able to have that reserve to throw money at it. Otherwise, you're going to have clients that are upset.
Yeah, Lance, I've been hearing stuff about a lot of outfitters doing surcharges and just some different stuff. Seems a little bit goofy. Your thoughts on that?
I don't know how everybody else is going to do it. I'm not going to tell people how to run their business. I just know how I'm going to do it. You know, I'm in a people business. You know, as much as we all want to come hunting and take a great big animal home, I'm in the people business, and I went on a guided hunt this year, and I just kind of think of it, how would I want to be treated? And you know, these guys they're not partners in my business. They're they're paying for a service, and we have a contract, and that's kind of how I look at it. So however everybody else wants to do it, that's their business. That's just that's the way I'm doing it. And you know, we're all gonna take it through this, you know, this COVID stuff, and I'm hoping it passes, and when it gets back to normal, we can get back to just, you know, running smoothly, and you know, what the prices are going to go up. People got to realize prices are going to go up. We're going to make, you know, if we're not profitable and the industry can handle it, we'll make up for it in the future. But I'm going to honor the contracts I have right now.
Moving forward, Lance, with hunts, whatever species it might be, where do you see opportunities if people want to book hunts as far as for your different grizzly bear, brown bear, you know, mountain goat, Dall sheep, and we're gonna talk about Dall sheep and the toque and the chugach and all that, but just specifically, what animals do you cover and what do you have in the next, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5 years out in the outlook?
Gotcha. So we guide for brown bear, grizzly bear, Dall sheep, goat, moose, and Sitka blacktail deer down on Kodiak Island. So I will say, guys that are, you know, that are listening and stuff, you need to plan out a little bit farther than you have in the past. I think if anything, COVID made guys realize they need to get out and go hunting more. And I think guys are really concerned about what's going on overseas as far as, you know, hunts in Africa and different countries. And I think New Zealand and Australia are, you know, they're shut down. And so guys are looking for places to go, and we've had a lot of inquiries. So my recommendation to guys is, you know, figure out what you want to do, and plan stuff a little bit farther in advance than you have in the past. You know, we have openings in 22 and 23. 21's pretty much filled, but I would recommend that guys really look at the hunts that are the destination hunts that they want to do. You know, I say Dall sheep, brown bear. You know, I want to go do that, but I also recommend guys look at things that are the camaraderie hunts. Me and my wife went and did an elk hunt in Montana, and I can't say how much fun we had being the clients and being in camp with a bunch of guys. And it's nothing like what we do where we're living in a backpack tent. And, this was fun, and it was one of those hunts. And so our Sitka Blacktail Deer hunts down on Kodiak are kind of like that. Come back and I'm guys forget sometimes that's part of the hunt is the camaraderie. And so anyway, that's kind of where my 2 cents on looking at the future.
For sure. Let's dive in a little bit with the chugach and the toque, and talk a little bit. So in Alaska, just for the listeners out there, kind of tell them, you can buy hunts that are, over the counter, so to speak. You just buy and go. And then there's also a draw system. From what I heard on a lot of the Alaska, buy and go, it was super, super crowded out there, and there was some definite challenges with that. And then talk about that and your thoughts on that, as well as then talk about these draw hunts with the chugach and the toque.
Gotcha. Well, our guide association just had our licensing meetings, and one of the things that really came up was conflicts in the field this past season. And, we didn't see it, but it sounded like there was a lot of conflicts in the field because there was more people in the field sheep hunting in the open areas than before. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but just there were a lot of guys that didn't get to go hunting in Canada that were looking for a place to hunt. I mean, we had lots of phone calls, but it was 10 or 12 years ago. I decided I didn't want to be doing that kind of competition in the open areas. And so we decided that we were going to hunt the draw areas. That's not the best business decision. We don't know how many hunters we have each year. That's a lot of work getting everybody applied in the draw. But the guys that draw, we have a good chance of killing a very, very respectable ram and having a very enjoyable hunt. So last year we had 6 draw hunters. We killed 6 rams. 4 were in the toque, 2 were in 14C. We had to work really hard. Last year we had a tough winter and nobody knew the extent of it because with COVID they didn't do the flight surveys. So I still think applying for toque and 14C is a good option if guys are looking to go on a good Dall sheep hunt and they're looking for a great experience and having a good opportunity at harvesting a respectable legal ram. If a guy is saying, hey, I want to apply for Alaska Dall sheep, put me in for the best area where I got the best chance of killing a 40-inch ram, this is not the year. And it might not be the year for a couple more years.
For both the Chugach and the toque, or just the toque?
Both. Both. Partly, the Chugach has kind of stayed the same it's pretty even keel. It's not getting better. It's not getting worse. But it's just, the Chugach is a coastal mountain range. Rams get to 9 or 10, they probably don't make it through the winter. It's not a Northwest Territories where you have super cold, light, fluffy snow. This is kind of cold and it gets ice and stuff like that, and so we just don't have the longevity. The coastal range doesn't allow for it. So I tell guys this year, if you want to go have an opportunity at killing a 37, 38-inch ram, have a great hunt, and you're going to have to work hard because the number of sheep aren't what they used to be, especially in the toque. But there are legal rams. I mean, we had to work hard last year. We killed 4 rams in the toque. They were between 8 and 11 years old, and they were between 37 and a half and 41 and a half. So we killed nice rams. We just had to work really hard. Same thing, same type of stuff in 14C. We killed 2 rams there, a 9 and a 10-year-old. Both of them, between 37 and 38.
Nice. And we've talked before where the toque are kind of the flared out, kind of tippy rams. Then you've got the Chugach where they're bigger based and more broomers, and kind of like the one I killed. Talk a little bit about the difference in the 2 units.
Yeah, both of them extremely physical. We used to say that toque was physically easier to get around. It's easier to get around in the toque, and like you can kind of keep hunting on the ridge tops, but you still got to travel great distances.
Right.
Yeah, that's like your hunt when we did it in the Chugach, we had to travel great distance, but we. If you got to a certain place and you say, hey, we need to go over here, you couldn't just keep following the ridge. You had to come all the way back down and regroup and get into a new drainage. And
mostly because of the jagged nature of the terrain compared to the toque, where it's a little bit more grassy ridges and stuff where you can kind of navigate around.
Correct. Okay. You don't have the glacial type of terrain. Right. You don't have the glacial tailings and all that kind of stuff that we're fighting when we're in 14C. I mean, it was every year, been doing this 25 years. You never know it all. And every year, and I hear the hunters and I spend time with them out there. I get back, and our sheep hunters this year, every single one of them was great. Every single one of them, when they got done, their experience was a little bit different. But the guys all came back and said they really, really enjoyed the struggle and then the success.
Right.
And I came to the realization is that's the attitude that fits with our program. I don't need everybody applying for a Dall sheep tag and a guy drawn that's not his attitude, because it's not going to be enjoyable for them and it's not going to be enjoyable for us.
You specialize in? What is it? Wet, cold, and miserable?
I mean, if you're coming to Alaska and that's not what you think you're getting, this is the wrong place for you.
Yeah. All right. So you're still saying to apply for the toque and the Chugach, but what you're saying is the toque had some die off, and you're going to have to work to find legal rams. Whereas maybe 2-3 years ago, the rams were very plentiful, and you didn't have to work quite as much as you would now to get a legal ram.
That is correct. I'm saying everybody needs to have realistic expectations, and I'm trying to make sure before a guy applies, because what's happened in the world of applying is guys think, hey, when I apply for a tag and then they draw, especially if it has low draw odds,
It's going to
they
be an
think they
easy
have
hunt.
something,
Yeah.
or they got something that's got tremendous trophy quality.
Right.
Drawing a tag here allows you to hunt in an area that is not overhunted, but it doesn't necessarily mean you've got tremendous trophy quality. It's
But
got
on that
above
same,
average.
but on that same token, you have to apply in order to gain the bonus point, correct?
No, we do not have a bonus point system in Alaska.
Okay, so I applied with you and Drew on my second year.
You
But there's a lot of people that have been applying for the same tag I put in and not drawn in 10 or 12 or 14 years, right?
correct? I mean, I got a couple guys that have been applying for 14, 15 years, have not drawn a tag. Last year we had a guy, Drew, his very first year applying.
Okay. So if people want to apply for the 14C and the toque, what do they need to do?
Go to our website, freelanceoutdooradventures.com. Right there on the front page, it'll say, as the sliders go by, it'll say apply now, and you click on it, and there's an application page there. Fill out the application, send it to us, or you can go to our website, and it has contact us, and you can send me an email, and I can give more information, or I can send the application that way also. But basically, the state requires us to have an application with the client, and then we'll put them in for where they're going to hunt, and we'll do it all because we have to put in our outfitter code. My managing partner, John, he's the one who contracts the token 14C. He works, he's been with us for 15 years, and we make sure we sit down and we try to spread guys out to where not all of our clients are fighting against each other, because there's about 8 different tags that guys can apply for it. There's different time frames in 14C. Like you had the second hunt in Peters Creek. There's a first, second, and third hunt. And so we just try to spread guys out on time frames they can come and physical ability.
All right, let's talk about mountain goat. How do guys hunt mountain goat with you?
So we got goat hunts on Kodiak, and we have them in 14C where they draw. So the 14C goat hunts, the goats in 14C are bigger bodied than the goats on Kodiak. The goats on Kodiak we get to hunt late in the year, so they can have really good hair. Now the goats that we hunt in 14C, we hunt them in first part of September. They have good hair, but they don't have 6-inch long flowing hair like the Kodiak goats do that we hunt at the end of October or the first part of November. Just the thing is our Kodiak goat hunts, we have a healthy population, but we just take 3 or 4 guys a year. It's just one of those things. We don't take a lot of guys, can't handle a ton of pressure. And the Chugach hunts, we had 2 people draw. They killed 2 nice billies. It's a physical hunt, especially getting to camp. But once you're in camp, you're kind of camped with the goats. We had a lady last year, and she did great. She killed an 8-year-old billy. Our billies on Kodiak we won't kill anything that's probably over 6 years old. They're just those goats in the winter come too close to the ocean, and they just get shot by locals down on the ocean. So it's just makes it tough for us to get a really old goat on Kodiak. So I recommend if a guy wants to go goat hunting, to put in for 14 seed. It's a real limited number. There's 6 non-resident tags there. Guys have about a 25% chance of drawing. I just recommend that guys apply for that goat hunt. If you draw, knock on wood, we've been 100% success if guys show up in shape, and we'll just it's a great hunt. You get a guide and a packer, and the difference between a great goat and a good goat's about an inch in horn, but there's a big difference between killing an August billy and killing a September billy, and just the length of their hair.
All right, Lance, what about your moose hunts?
Moose hunts, they're one thing I've found is I haven't done a good job of explaining to guys how physical they are. We always gauge stuff. Well, it's easier than a sheep hunt. Well, that's not. Our moose hunts are extremely physical. Guys need to be able to walk. They're super remote. They're not backpack style. We fly in, set up a camp. You got a cot and you got a stove and a lantern and stuff like that. But it's all fly in, fly out. And it's all, go to a glassing knob, spend a lot of time glassing. And when you find the moose that is the one we want to shoot, if it's 5 miles away, we're going to go 5 miles away and kill it. And then we're going to figure out how we're going to get it out. And guys got to be willing to do that. I found that I didn't do a great job of portraying that to guys, and guys are showing up and going, I ain't going to walk over there. And it's like, well, it ain't going to walk by the tent. And they're like, well, I just thought we'd just call them over here. Our country, because it's so open, guys always think, hey, well, you can call a moose in. Because it's so open, we can call moose, but, if they're not seeing a lot of they're not seeing what they're hearing, even though we got decoys and stuff like that, you don't call one from, a couple miles away usually. You're not calling the ones you want to shoot, that's for sure, that far away. So, anyway, moose have been in high demand. I tell guys if they're interested in a moose, they definitely need to call and get on the list, and just understand it's more of an adventure hunt than our moose hunts are more of an adventure hunt than most guys realize. And so I got a few guys that are like, man, this was an awesome physical, adventure type hunt. I almost want to turn around and do it again.
Lance, every hunt with you is an adventure type hunt.
I've realized, when Nikki and I we went down to Montana, and I can't express, outfitters all need to go take some of their own money and go spend it on a hunt so that they get to be the client. So they, just get to put the shoe on the other foot. And how much fun we had, and what a great job they did. And then I got back and I go, well, this is what most guys think. And that hunt was not very physical, very enjoyable. We saw lots of elk. The pack out was easy. It was just, everything was great about it. And guys are like, oh, I want to go to Alaska and do a moose hunt. And nothing about that hunt has any correlation with Alaska.
Oh, well said. Well said. Okay, your blacktail hunts, are you doing those like off of a boat in a bay, or how does that work?
We got a tent set up where we got Arctic oven tents. We got a big tent, so we can take 4 guys, 2 guides. So there's 6 guys in camp. We got a big tent where everybody can have dinner in the same tent, and we can have, give each other a little bit of grief each evening. But they're good hunts. Nobody's coming blacktail hunting with us looking for a Boone and Crockett buck. Guys are coming. We're going to shoot respectable deer. We're going to shoot 80, 90-inch blacktails. We're going to have lots of fun. Country's open. We're going to see deer. They're real respectable price-wise. So it's just one of those things that I had a guy this year, hadn't hunted with us before, came and did a moose hunt, and had so much fun on his moose hunt, and said, hey, do you got anything open? Well, I got a blacktail hunt open. I had a guy come, and he doesn't have anybody coming with him. He goes, I'll come. And so we came with him, shot a blacktail first day, and just he really like drilled into my head, hey man, I killed a nice buck, but this was so much fun. I'd just do it again for the fun we had with all the guides and telling the stories and all that kind of stuff. He says, you need to really pump that, because I'm very, very much want to articulate to guys, don't come looking for Boone and Crockett bucks. And that has made it hard for me to sell those hunts in the past.
But of all your hunts, it's more of just a fun, great get together, more of a style like what the guided hunt you just went on, where terrain's a little bit easier to get around. You know, you see lots of deer, and it's opportunity. Good thing to take some newer hunters just to get them involved and get them out in the woods, and a great fun hunt, right?
Exactly. And you're going to get to see some Kodiak Alaska weather, which that's always that's something that most people don't see. Even when we have just a little bit of a storm, like, you know, most people have never really spent any time outside when it's blowing 50. And, you know, like, it's blowing 50, like, we can stand up, let's go hunting. Blowing 80, well, then we'll stay in the tent.
Lance, I know you got to use the new Swarovski 115 millimeter objective lens this year. What are your thoughts on the 115?
Man, it was awesome. It was awesome under the right condition. I took it when we did the grizzly bear hunt. We were able to go do that. I took it with me. Now, anywhere that you're hunting, you're using a spot and scope, like what you guys are doing for Kuyu Gear and what you guys are doing for mule deer. It's just unbelievable on, you know, how clear it was from side to side. Just the field of view was not, it was a step up. And there's, like, when you go from the 65 millimeter spot and scope to the 95, I have a couple guides that have 65s, and I carry the 95. And, like, all of a sudden they'll be like, hey, I'll take my scope today. Like, we're going deer hunting. Like, well, I don't need to have my big scope. And I'll look through their 65, and I'm like, what is this piece of junk? and they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, this thing sucks compared to my 95. And so that is kind of the next step when you go from the 95 to the 115. You just go, holy Toledo, it's that big a difference. Now, with that being said, you can't use the same tripod. You better have a sturdy tripod. If you're going to be doing something out of a truck, you're going to be doing something on a side-by-side four-wheeler, you need to have a way bigger, sturdier tripod. Also with that, you know, we took it grizzly bear hunting. We went on a couple stalks. I threw it in the side of my Barney's pack, and away I went. It is heavy, and it's enough weight difference between the 95 that it won't go on any backpack hunts. Like, I'm not taking it sheep hunting.
Makes sense.
I'm not taking it any place where I may need to walk, you know, an hour with it. It's that heavy. It's that much of a difference that's on that side of the pack. It ends up pulling the pack. I mean, I want to say I think it's almost 8 pounds. I mean, that's like having another rifle. And you got to remember, I'm carrying a rifle, spot and scope, tripod. You know, I got a fair amount of stuff. And all of a sudden, it barely, like, you won't fit it in the side pocket of your Kuyu backpack.
Right.
It has to go inside the backpack.
It's like carrying a spare tire.
Yeah, there is.
But optically, it's unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like, I got one coming. You know, I got to use it, and it was great. And Dean's like, hey man, I need you to send it back. I said, no problem. So I sent it back, and it was optically unbelievable. You just have to know where to use it. And like we do with a lot of our equipment, it's, you know, you need a quiver of optics. It's not one optic for every scenario. And so it's one of those things that we'll have. I had a couple hunters in camp with it, and they were like, wow, this is, you know, it's, you know, we videoed through it. We videoed a bear through it at probably 3 miles, and I had this Swarovski digiscope, and I hooked up my fancy camera and videoed, and that was another test, because if that optical quality isn't tremendous, that video ends up being really grainy, and it was unbelievable.
Lance, I want to ask you about Kuyu Gear. Obviously, you were involved with Kuyu way early on with Jason and Brendan and the whole thing. And I see you in a lot of the pictures wearing the Velo pattern. How do you like that pattern for Alaska?
It's worked good. It's for us it's the best pattern. It's on a personal note, when I put it on, it's like, man, I can't put this on. This isn't what Jason and I always wore. We always wore the Vias, and it's just. But Nikki's like, man, that's not what you and Jason wore. And I said, I know, but it was time to turn over a new leaf. It was all my guides all wear Vias, so I'm like, all right, I'm gonna get this Velo stuff, and I'm gonna use it. And it was kind of nice because we didn't get items mixed up. But in Alaska, we're dealing with a lot of yellow, dead grass. We're dealing with, especially like Kodiak Island. We're dealing with a lot of lighter colors. We're not dealing with dark timber. We're not dealing with that kind of stuff. It's amazing when guys show up like on a moose hunt. They show up like first part of September, and the leaves are already turning colors, and they're like, "What's going on?" I'm like, "What do you mean? You know, isn't this early for this?" I'm like, no, that's what happens. Is so the yellowish kind of color. Um, it works good. I've been real impressed with the Velo. They did a good job rolling it out in all of the items. I was kind of worried it wouldn't be in every item, and I don't know what it is. It might be my ADD, but I do not like mixing camo. So I was like, man, I was happy that they got it in all the gators and all that kind of stuff. So, um, we're seeing more and more hunters show up with it. But for Alaska, if a guy says, "Hey, I don't have anything, and I'm going to get started, and I'm going to Alaska, or I'm going somewhere like that," I'd highly recommend that camel pattern.
Lance, we've talked on other podcasts and in person as well. You also kind of offer a service. I don't know how much you do it anymore or with the COVID and everything, but um, for certain individuals and families, you will basically go on hunts with them and help them organize hunts on big hunts. Are you still doing that? And if anyone's out there listening that kind of wants you to, in other words, take the bull by the horns and help them get their Grand Slam or, things like that, will you do that still?
Yes, I still do that. I'm only doing it for North America sheep. I've went to Tajikistan. I've done some stuff. I'm kind of not going to do anything that is. I just say that's outside my purview now. It's been a while. But I'm going to go down to Tiburon Island here in a month. I'm going to go to Carmen Island a couple times after the first year. So the sheep hunt stuff that I do, guys that want to set it up, it's kind of a special service. I tell guys I'm doing it because I enjoy it. I'm not doing it because I have to do it. It's expensive for guys, but if they want, I would say the service is, guy says, I don't have time to set up the research. I want to make sure that I'm going on a hunt that I'm not going to have an issue with. I want somebody to go with me that's going to be able to speak the language. I'm going to understand what they're saying when they say, hey, you probably should kill this one. Because you've heard it and I've heard it, but there's nothing worse than, hey, there's a band of 4 rams and they're saying shoot, and the guy's not 100% sure, like, which one is he talking about? Is it the third one from the right, or is it the second one from the left? Or and that is like, out of everything, that's like the most important, to make sure we're shooting the right ram. And that's where I would say my value really, really comes in, because there's that's an ugly feeling. Knock on wood, I haven't had it, but walking up on a ram that was the wrong one, that I wouldn't want to experience that. But I've heard about it plenty of times, and I'm I'm not saying it can't happen, and I'm not saying it doesn't happen to good people, but that's what, we're very, very cognizant that we're on the same page so that that doesn't happen. And that's probably the value I bring. But, the guides I don't guide it. The guides I work with, they know me. We work together good. I do lots of spotting. I do lots of field judging and try to score it the best I can. But to make sure that it's smooth from A to B, that's kind of what I do.
In essence, you're kind of acting as a liaison between the outfitter and guide and the client, so that you can add an extra layer of communication between the guides and the client to make sure that the client gets what they're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, you know, sometimes we lose sight. I'm in the business of making sure guys go home with a smile, whatever it is. I don't care if we're hunting sage rats or if we're hunting elephants. That's basically. I want guys going home saying, "Man, that's a great experience. I would do that with Lance again. I would do that with one of Lance's guides again." If they say, "Hey, that wasn't a great experience. I would never do that again," then I need to examine, was that something we did? Was it something they did? Was it not a good fit? And so that's always a continuing learning education. But that's what the ultimate goal for me always has been, is that the guy would say, "Hey, you know what? I had a good experience. I would do that again."
Yeah, it's great stuff. Lance, freelanceoutdooradventures.com, is that the best way? And I assume I'll put in the show notes your phone number, but what's the best way for guys to get a hold of you?
The best way, actually, email is the best way. It's amazing. I'm getting old and I cannot remember everything. It's like I talk to somebody on the phone, I got to send them an email. My email is the best way, which is freelanceoa@mac.com. That's the best way to communicate with me. I can make sure I can send emails at midnight, or I can do it at 3 in the morning.
Perfect, man. Well, it's always great talking to you. Tell Nikki and the kids hello. And with the shows probably all being shut down, that's going to be a little bit different for you. Normally, you're always doing SCI and doing some of the shows. What are your thoughts with that?
Well, my thoughts are, I don't know if this might be the death of the shows. It won't, but I think when this is all said and done, the outfitters are going to realize going to the shows probably are not as important. I mean, it's amazing, the amount of inquiries we just had. So I think the shows are great. I'd still go. Just we're going to miss seeing our friends, but
Right.
Things are going to change. I mean, I think lots of things are going to change. That 10 years from now, we're going to go, man, we did it this way until COVID hit, and now we're doing it a different way. So, as old and crusty as I am on certain things, I'm trying to learn to try to be fluid, because things are changing and we've got to adapt. And I'm going to miss not seeing you and seeing the guys there. But, when we get back together, when this all does pass, I think I will say this: the hunters that came hunting this year, it was the most excited as a whole group of clients I ever had. I think if we can ever take a positive out of all of this, is myself, my guides, and all the clients included had a much greater appreciation for the time they spent out in God's creation. And so I think when it's all said and done, that might be something that we really take a look at and be able to be thankful for our time out there and our time with our friends.
For sure, buddy. All right. Thanks for coming on and sharing with us. It was great chatting with you. God bless. Like I said, tell the family hello, and we'll see you down the road.
All right. Thanks, Jay.
All right, buddy. Take care.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.